We're here with some of the veterans that work with us here at MindPoint Group and hoping to talk about their services and their time in the service and how it's helped them with their work here at MindPoint Group. Want to kick it over to Matt. Matt, can you introduce yourself and tell us how you ended up here?
Sure. Thanks, Casey. My name is Matt Latyszonek. I'm the Associate Director for Governance, Risk, and Compliance here at MindPoint Group. I served in the United States Navy. I was an intelligence officer with the Riverines. So, funny story, I spent about 5 years in the Navy and never stepped foot on a big gray ship. So it's always an interesting tidbit. So my currently, I'm doing things that really have nothing to do with what I did in the Navy, but there's a lot of interesting skills we'll talk about that still I think transition over. But so I got out back in 2010 and worked my way into defense contracting, and then eventually found my way to MindPoint Group about 2.5 years ago.
Great, Amy.
Oh, hi, my name is Amy Horan. I am actually a recently retired Air Force member. Served 24 years in the United States Air Force. Started off as an enlisted security forces member, and 4 years later got my commission as an officer and spent the next 20 years in the officer category. Start off, as I said, in security forces, which is kind of like security police, and then transitioned to then communications as an officer, and switched over midway to cyber operations and finished up in defensive cyber operations. So it's been a very interesting journey. And 6 months ago in May, I joined MindPoint Group, and it's been quite a transition, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, hello everyone. So my name's Eric Barnes. My current position at MPG is training and knowledge management. I served in the Marine Corps from 2003 to 2007 as a flight planner, at least initially. That was my MOS. I never actually got to do my MOS because when I was in school, there was a need for a training NCO at the TAYOC at Yuma, Arizona, the Tactical Air Operations Center. So that's where I was sent to fill a billet for my 4 years. So that was a great experience. A lot of awesome people. I worked with a lot of radar techs. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. And then I did 2 tours in Iraq. So happy to be here.
Awesome, great. And then how did you end up at MindPoint Group?
I actually had a friend that works here, and he kind of introduced me to the company, and thought it would be a good fit, and that's how I ended up here. I've been here for a year.
Awesome, great stuff. So, well, wanted to jump right in. So, one of the things that we talk about here at MindPoint Group all the time is that we have a highly diverse organization, and one of those is our veterans, and bringing in your experience from what you learned while in the armed forces and your time served. How has that experience as a vet helped you in your job here at MPG? Matt, I'll throw it over to you.
Sure. So one thing that I think is unique that veterans bring to really any organization they join is the ability and the requirement to have to be able to work with anybody. You join a military unit, as Eric and Amy will both attest to. Nobody really, nobody leaves voluntarily and says, "Hey, I'm going to move to a new job. I took a new position." And leaves. There's not a lot of turnover. So you have to accomplish a mission with everybody who's there at the time, whether you get along with them or not, whether or not you see eye to eye on things. At the end of the day, the mission comes first, and that's what you have to make sure you're all on the same page to accomplish. That's something that I think really was a strength I brought, something that helped me be successful. Was no matter what organization or company I ended up at ever since the military, you can jump in and able to make it work with anybody, no matter what their background is, what their opinions are, anything like that. Even I mean, as a Navy guy, I'm even able to work with Marines. I mean, that's saying a lot right there. So just kidding, Eric. That's the only shot I'll take. I promise, probably. But yeah, I think that ability to work with that diverse group of folks and have to make it work, without people, you can't fire people in the military the way you can, and in a private sector, you can say this person isn't working out, they're not up to snuff, they can't quite do the job. In the military, you got to train them, work with them, maybe help, just make it happen. And I think that's something we all bring over and weave into our civilian service as we continue forward. So that's one of the biggest things. I have others, but I want to make sure that Eric and Amy can throw some of their great ideas in here too.
So I guess I'll pick up next and talk about my experience as a vet and how that has helped me as at MindPoint Group. But one of the things I forgot to mention in my introduction, I apologize for that, was what I do at MindPoint Group. I'm a portfolio manager, so that puts me in a function that's very similar to program management, but just think of it at different compartments of a program, and I help with the management of that. My experience with leaning on others, that's a really big one for me. Matt alluded to this, and the power of team and quick thinking outside the box and making things work. You had to make things work in the military, depending on the mission, depending on what you were doing. People are depending on you. And you don't come together, power of the team as one, and figure out solutions quickly. So that experience has helped me significantly in the little time that I've been here at MindPoint Group, is leaning on the team and helping me understand a very, very different culture, a very, very different language, a very, very different way of doing things, and doing it quickly and doing it right, and doing it to the best of my ability. So that has I think that has really been the bedrock that has served me well here at MindPoint Group in the little time that I've been here.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Matt and Amy said. I sense there's going to be a theme here with with as far as teamwork is concerned, because I mean that's kind of what I think too. I mean, the team dynamics that you experience in the military are, I think, incredibly useful. I mean, you're introduced to a very diverse group of people, different ways of thinking, different ways of working through various issues, and you learn to appreciate those different perspectives. I mean, from the beginning of when you join the military, um, you experience everything as a team. So that you eat together, you work out together, you deploy together. So I think, at least to some extent, at least for me, that when you get out of the military, you're kind of looking for something like that. And I think that MindPoint Group, at least in my experience, offers that. It's a good group of people, good group of professionals that um, that work together as a team to reach a common goal. And I think a lot of the times when you work for a place where that team cohesion it doesn't work or it doesn't exist, that you want to create it, and that I think is a benefit to an employer. Is you know what a good team looks like, and you know how as a team how to build that team communication if it's needed. So I think that, I mean, that's a benefit to an employer as somebody in the military, knowing what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. As a remote workforce too, that's been a challenge for us as well within the organization, is building team, and our vets have certainly been a part of that. Matt, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just something that both Amy and Eric made me think of is another, something that really helped that they probably can echo as well. A lot of times, everyone talks about being proactive, right? It's sort of the buzzword for the proactive has a good connotation, right? People hear, "Oh, I'm proactive," that's a positive, and just because of that, it tends to be, if someone's reactive or somebody reacts to something, that automatically almost instantly gets a negative vibe. But when you really think about it, there are certain situations where you have to react, right? I mean, not everything can be predicted. You can't get ahead of everything. And in the military, one thing you have to be able to do, and you learn to do, and you're trained to do, is to react. Sure, you plan, you try and get ahead of everything. You have all your contingencies, but Mr. Murphy is always going to show up, and you have to be able to adjust, adapt, and react to that. So I think being able to work in those dynamic situations and react, and to Amy's point, think quickly and really be on your feet, think on your feet, is something that is very not unique to the military, but in almost any branch of service, in almost any job you do in the military, you're going to have to learn to be reactive as well. So while we don't want to be reactive, you want to always be proactive. Veterans tend to bring a strong ability to react to situations, especially quickly changing ones and high stress situations. And I think that's something else that really has, at least for me, has helped me be successful. In most of these positions. And sort of a funny anecdote. I mean, when you think about pressure and stress with that reaction piece, Eric talked about deploying to Iraq twice. I went there once. I'm sure Amy in her career has been to plenty of austere environments. So you learn to handle pressure and stress. And so when you're in the civilian workplace, it's a different kind of stress, but sometimes you think back and you go, I'm really stressed, but at least I'm not in the desert where I'm worried about, something exploding next to me. And, we joke about it, at least we will, but the reality of it is, it sets your bar differently. So I think you're able to handle that stress in a different way. So I just wanted to throw those things in because I think those are also areas that veterans bring. And for the folks who are going to be getting out soon or transitioning, that's the kind of stuff they can think about as additional items and values they bring to the table that they can bring to employers and they can highlight. I know we're going to get to more about that kind of stuff later, so I don't want to get ahead of us, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Matt. So you started to touch on it a little bit. So like we're working in a cybersecurity environment. We're trying to be proactive as much as possible in cybersecurity and not reactive as much as we can. How have you, why is working at a cybersecurity company with other vets adding value for you, Amy, within the role?
Well, I'm not going to try to make this sound all smart and intelligent. I'm just going to go down to the basic. For me is cybersecurity is very similar across the board. We're, in very basic terms, we're trying to secure something and make it inaccessible to those we don't want to have access to it. So that's very basic, right? But the language that surrounds the thing that we are doing, the cybersecurity, between the military environment and the civilian environment, like the MindPoint Group, is very, very different. The culture of the way things are done is very, very different. So for me, 24 years in the military and stepping out into the civilian world, yes, I'm not wearing a uniform, but nobody sees me and sees military written on me. It really was a very different, interesting way to assimilate to a different culture, and trying not to explain that I'm sorry, I'm coming from a different world. So leaning on the vets in the company, I've had multiple conversations with Matt, leaning on some of the other vets that I work with, but leaning on them to help me understand how things are done, so I'm able to be a valuable member of the team, and help propel the team forward in whatever that mission was, down to the language, down to the speak, down to the way things are written, so I'm understood, and I'm understood very clearly. So the basic for me was 6 months in, has just been that translating my function from a very different environment. So for me, I'll kind of explain it as though I'm performing the same function in a country where I do not speak the language, and I don't read the language. So I'm trying to get that culture absorbed in me. So my vet comrades have been an incredible resource for me to go back and ask, how is this done? How is that done? What do we mean by this? And also to change my speak to match what the civilian world carries on. So that's the very basic for me.
Awesome, great insights there for sure. So being able to speak the language is something that the team over here in marketing is trying to do all the time. So we feel that part of it, if not feeling the part for you guys on the civilian side versus the military side. Eric, from your perspective, how has working with vets helped you here at MindPoint Group?
Man, I think for me it's the shared military background and life experiences. It creates almost like an instant camaraderie, and there's a mutual respect and understanding that each of us have because of those experiences. And I think that a lot of us, we share similar values: discipline, dedication, a strong work ethic, and we understand the significance of working as a team and working with other veterans in cybersecurity. I mean, because it is such a team kind of based career, means that sharing these values, it can lead to a more in sync and productive work environment because we all kind of share those same values.
Yeah, I wanted to throw one little piece on the back end to tie that in. So we talked about, Amy talked about speaking the language. Eric mentioned a little bit, and also talked about, the shared background and camaraderie. And I tie that, to me, that's all part of communication, right? At the end of the day, and that's something that, again, in the military, communication is probably anyway really the most important thing, right? I mean, nothing happens if you're not communicating. Bad things happen if you don't, and that's something you learn to do, and you have to learn to sort of speak different languages, right? And if you're speaking on a radio, as you know, I'm sure other folks can attest to, it's a completely different language. You're trying to say what you normally would say, hey, I'm going to turn left, and it's a completely different phrase, right? And if you don't understand that lingo, you're sitting there going, what are they saying? So you have to learn and adapt to that. It's the same kind of thing with the transition. I think that's probably, you know, what allows someone like Amy to be successful too, is that she, even throughout her career, would have to learn to speak different languages with different services. Air Force, Navy, Marines, all here right now, right? We'll have different ways of saying all different things. And so even when we were in, you had to learn to, okay, what is he saying? What is she saying? What does that mean? Oh, okay, that's the same thing. If I say scuttlebutt or bulkhead, someone looks at me and goes, bulkhead? Why don't you just call that a wall? Or a hatch, it's like, Matt, that's a door. So, you had to do it then, and it prepared us, I think, in many ways, to be able to do that now. So communications is really, the end of it. Boy, that's what it all boils down to.
You started to touch on it a little bit there. So of the advice you would have coming out of there for vets that are transitioning into a cybersecurity company, into the private sector, away from there. It sounds like, Amy, you have a lot of you have recent experience, obviously, in that and going through those transitions. What are 2 or 3 things that maybe you would make sure to share with other vets that are transitioning right now?
So in the process of transition, I think one of the hardest thing was translating some of your skills into what you think the civilian world would understand, and trying to make it relevant to, your job. That's whatever the job is you're looking for in cybersecurity. For me, it was something in program or project management, but, trying to translate those skills. I guess that one of the things that I think helped make me successful, and I would advise other vets to do, was I maximized the power of LinkedIn, and I looked for other um, vets and other people who had been in the military, who were working in the field that I was interested in going into. And I talked to them about behind the scenes, what does this career field really look like? So I could take their words and I could take their actual day-to-day and match it up to my experiences. Being able to call out things like ability to work under pressure, dedication and commitment, being able to think outside the box, getting it done right, the ability to learn under the fire hose environment, where you're thrown into a position you don't have any experience and you're expected to learn it and learn it quickly, things like that. So having those conversations with them, and I would just reach out and say, hey, my name is Amy Horan, I'm getting ready to retire. Would you have 10 minutes to spend with me to just tell me what your life looks like, and helping me understand how to translate those skills. So that was very helpful in writing my resume. That was very helpful in my interview, and being able to answer the questions that were asked to me, and taking that and matching what was behind the scenes of my uniform life and matching it together to be able to present the picture of the complete me, who I really was, in a way that the receiving end would, I hope, understand. So that's some advice that I would have is, get out of your comfort zone and go talk to other vets who are, there's a boatload of them, LinkedIn and all over the place. Go talk to them and get some of their experience and try to utilize that to match up to your journey and how you want to map out that journey moving forward.
I'm glad all that work worked out for you to end up here at MindPoint Group, because it's been wonderful working with you for the last 6 months as well. So, really appreciate all the work you did to actually get found by an organization that would value where you're at. That's great. Eric, what's your experience with working with the cybersecurity company? What experiences did you need to translate or have come through?
I mean, yeah, taking from my own experience, I'd have to say, I mean, you have more skills than you think you do. I think it's pretty common for guys getting out of or vets getting out of the military to undervalue, or maybe not even take into account some of the skills that they have, the general soft skills, those things they use to actually do the MOS of the job that they had in the military. And I know this because I did it. A lot of my Marine buddies, when they got out, they did the same thing. They're essentially, you want to avoid having that tunnel vision where you're trying to take the job that you did in the military and compare it one-to-one with a civilian job. That isn't always going to be possible. But there's plenty of soft skills, general skills that you gained and acquired through doing your military job that are translate into the civilian world. I mean, you're more than just the job description of the MOS that you did in the military. There's so much more to what you've done, and you have to be mindful of that and use that. And I think you need to think of those, list them out, add those to your resume, use those to market yourself to companies when you get out. And I would say another big one would be networking. You meet a lot of people in the military. A lot of them become friends, a lot of them lifetime friends. And I think stay in contact with them, because you never know when those contacts are going to turn into something. They could reach out to you and say, hey, there's this really great offer. I mean, that happened to me. So it's the reason I'm here at MPG, is because I had a friend that works here, and then they let me know that this was, I didn't even know this place existed. So it's definitely valuable to stay in contact with those people. So I was actually able to get into a DoD contract when I first got out of the military, because a buddy of mine got out about a year before I did. And I mean, he knew I was getting out. He knew I would need a job. So he reached out and he's like, hey, I have this job. Are you interested? And I definitely was. And he even walked me through kind of, tweaking my resume so that it would give me the best chance of getting the job. And I ended up getting it. And I've been in federal contracting ever since I got out of the military. And I think a reason why I've stayed in that sphere of work is because a lot of these companies that have these contracts, they want vets. And the reason why that's the case is because a lot of these contracts they have, their customer is the military. So we share this common language, and you kind of have a built-in rapport with the people that you're hiring, with your customers. I mean, whether it's service desk, cybersecurity, you're a field service agent, you're going to be interacting with the customer. And a lot of the times they're in uniform, and you kind of speak the same language. So for those companies, you're a benefit. A lot of the times you look at the job postings, and that kind of that optional, not necessarily requirement, but they're like, served in the military, U.S. Navy, Marine Corps, like they want that. So that's definitely something that I think that anybody getting out of the military should look into, is like a lot of those companies want people from the military.
So my experience was a little different, easier in some ways. I was an intelligence officer, and so when I got out, I ended up going straight into Department of Defense, intelligence community contracts in DC. It was almost a one-for-one. The background I had, the things I had done in the military, I was pretty much doing them for the government now, just at a different agency, right? I wasn't wearing a uniform. I was wearing, a polo shirt or a tie or whatever. But that's not very often is not the case, right? There's a couple MOSs and jobs where that fits nicely, but the majority of them, it doesn't really go one-for-one, right? So you definitely do know more than you think you know. But I'd say on the flip side, also keep in mind to be humble. That you may get out as you retire as an admiral or general, right? And you may not get to go jump into your next career as a executive vice president or a CEO, right? You may have to take a few steps back and work at a senior manager level or whatever it's called, right? That doesn't devalue anything at all, but just keep in mind that it's not always a one-for-one. And so just be humble and learn, be a sponge, right? Be willing to take that step back and say, okay, it's a shift. I have to learn the new language now. I have to learn how to interact in a slightly different way, and use that as a chance to learn and grow and accelerate. So being humble, I think, is really, really important. If you weigh that with knowing more than you think you do, I think you've got a recipe for success there. Post-military career. The other piece I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions, and that ties into what my colleagues here have both said. Whether that's when you're trying to figure out what type of work do I want to do? Hey, do I even want to do this? I think I want to be a program manager. What is that? Talk to people who do it, right? Find out, ask the questions. And then once you're in a position, continue to ask questions. A lot of people are afraid to ask a question because, we don't want to look uninformed or dumb, right? We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing if we were hired to do a job. But what I have found in, over a decade, decade and a half of experience is that asking a question about something that I'm afraid going, man, this person's not going to think I know what I'm doing. 99% of the time, that's not going through their head. They are going to be more excited to share their knowledge with you and to show off. I mean, the human ego is a powerful, powerful thing, and a lot less concerned about, wow, I can't believe that Matt didn't know this. 1 out of 100 cases, maybe that happens, but you're still going to be better off for asking the question and getting the answer. Don't ever be afraid to ask the question, and don't ever be afraid to say, I don't know. So I'd say, be humble. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Tie everything Eric and Amy put together, and then come work for us at MindPoint Group and continue to do great things.
We're at time, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate everything and all of your service as well. We are putting this video out on Veterans Day in 2023. So we really appreciate everybody for taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully we get to see you as one of our colleagues in the near future. Don't forget to like and subscribe in the channels and follow us on LinkedIn. Follow us in all the places for all things cybersecurity, as well as jobs that we have posted all the time. And we look forward to seeing you back next year for a few of you. Matt, do we get to see you again maybe next year? Great. All right.
That'll make three in a row. So if you invite me back, hopefully I didn't annoy anyone too much.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, and thanks again for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.